And welcome into Brainstorming America. This is a new show that we starting here on WEAC TV 24, and it's going to be coming to you on a regular basis. And we hope that you'll hear from you if you like it. If you got some topics you'd like us to talk about, we're going to try to do it like in a more national basis than we do on the past or the local. And of course, the partner on this right here is a co-host is none other than the Secretary of State, John Merrill. John, welcome.
Thank you, my friend. It's always good to be with you.
Yeah, this is one of those things where normally you're my guest.
Yes, sir.
But today we're equal co-hosts.
Yes, sir.
Co-hosts. You half owner of the ball team. I'm half owner of the ball team. And if this team don't win the World Series, we're both in trouble. But first of all, I want to take some subjects.
Well, I want to remind the viewers, though, it's kind of like when people used to ask me about being in the legislature, and they asked me about different leadership roles and who the people were and what the activities were. And I said, well, all members are equal. The speaker's just a little bit more equal than everybody else. So even though we're equal, you're just a little bit more equal than I am. Well, and everybody understands that.
As far as this part. Okay. Got that out of the way. That's going. So let's, I've made some notes of topics that I would like to address. Maybe you got some, hope so. The first topic I would like to talk about that's on national news is education. And there's so many things we can talk about, with the SRT or whatever it is. We can talk about the
CRT, critical race theory.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's just one of many things.
I'm thinking about the guys that come in your house when you're with the SWAT team. But anyhow, the critical race theory, all the different woke things that's going on with a lot of people don't see it in local Alabama. But we're not talking about Alabama. We're talking about nationwide.
Yes, sir.
What's your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I think any reasonable person that understands anything about education knows that education and education decisions are best left up to the local communities in that particular state, in that county, in that community, in that jurisdiction. Because those are the people that know and best understand what needs to be done to properly educate the students in that community. Nobody wants to get away from the basic principles of complete education, which are reading, writing, and arithmetic. If you can master those things, then you can master the ability to learn. The purpose of school is to teach someone to become a lifelong learner. That's the entire purpose of school. And those decisions that help someone become a lifelong learner are not best left to career bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. They're best left up to the local communities and the local community leaders, the local community educators in those communities, whether you're talking about the 67 counties in Alabama, the 146 school systems in our state, or if you're talking about the private, parochial, independent, or homeschool environments that are already well established here.
What are your feelings regarding? You said you touched on it local, and as far as that goes, all things are local. But President Trump was looking at that. The situation was trying to change to some radical things in the schools. He wanted DeVos to tackle those from a national level. As president, he wanted to do that. You feel like the president has a part to play in what we're...
Well, of course he does, because the president actually directs the conversation about whatever's happening in whatever different division or department. I think the biggest problem that was created related to education at the federal level started in 1977 when President Carter made it clear that he was going to change health, education, and welfare, with Joseph Califano being the secretary, to create a new Department of Education strictly related to education. So they created Health and Human Services, and then they created the Department of Education. It's been on a downhill slide ever since that time. That's a problem that we will never get out of. There are more employees in the Department of Education than almost any other department in federal government today. And that's a problem because those people have their own opinions, their own ideas about what needs to be done at the local level, whether it's one of the 50 states, whether it's one of the local jurisdictions in those states or the local communities. And that's not appropriate, and it's not applicable to ensuring quality education for each one of the children that are served in our state.
But if a kid were, and this is something that Trump was talking about too, about a kid going to school in California would relocate to Alabama or Texas or wherever. It's a whole different teaching. It shouldn't be based on your zip code of the teaching you get.
Well, but look, and Ken, there's a couple things we need to make sure we're clear on, because I think everybody understands this. If you move from Alabama to California, if you move from New Mexico to Georgia, if you move from Wisconsin to Idaho, you want to make sure that whenever a student goes from one location to the other, that if they're in the 4th grade in Alabama, when they get to California and they're still 4th grade age, they should be able to do 4th grade work in California. Nobody argues with that point. We want to make sure those things are transferable, even though there are some differences. In Alabama, we teach Alabama history in the 4th grade. But we want to make sure that they can master those 4th grade skills. Now, the other thing that's so very important to understand is that in the areas of special education or other levels of remediation, you want to ensure that when students are having a problem or an issue, or they need specific attention in a particular area, they're going to be able to receive the assistance that they need. But I will tell you this, there's a family that's recently moved from New York to Alabama, and a family that's recently moved from California to Alabama that I know of personally, that were not receiving the type of services that we provide with our individual education program, the IEP, that's available in Alabama for those students. They were not receiving that instruction in New York, and they were not receiving it in California. And those states are behind where we are in that regard.
That is completely amazing. I can think of a time when that would be reversed. We got to go to a break. Got to
Yes,
make
sir.
some money. Depend. And welcome back to Brainstorming America, and here with Secretary of State, Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill, and we are Brainstorming America. We've got some subjects we want to talk to you about, and one of them, John, I'd like to go next to something that you can't turn the TV on without it being there. It's about the border, our southern border mainly. We got problems with the guy that came in and got Paul Pelosi was from the Canadian border, but mainly our southern border. Millions of people. Millions of people. What we're going to do.
Well, look, I don't think that we need to be confused about what we're talking about here, because the issues are as clear as day. We're talking about crime. We're talking about drugs, illegal and illicit drugs. We're also talking about not following the proper path to citizenship. So there's several different factors that are related to this immigration issue. What we all want, and look, just to touch on immigration just a little bit more, Ken, I don't know anybody that doesn't want folks to come to the United States and to gain citizenship. But I don't know anybody that wants them to be able to come and not go through the proper procedures and the proper laws. We want anyone that wants to become a citizen of the United States to do so, but there's an appropriate and proper way to do it. If you don't like the way the laws are, we need to change the laws. You can't do it just because you say, okay, well, we think anybody that shows up should be welcomed. That's not the way the procedure works. It never has worked that way, and it should not work that way today. But the other thing is more of a safety and security issue related today to how people are exposed to criminal activity, to how they're exposed to illicit and illegal drugs, and we want to make sure that when those things occur, that those people are properly identified and properly punished, and not let out just so those individuals will be in a position to cause additional mischief, crime, or harm to the state or to individuals.
Well, you know, these are not just, they might be good people, but they're not nice. All of them are not nice. There's a lot of rape. There's a lot of things that's going along on the trail that don't make the news, that these people would do anything to get here. And the people that charge thousands of dollars for them to get here, there's a lot of that. Then the fentanyl. I've never seen anything in my life with this fentanyl. This is China.
Well, there's never been anything like it before, and I think what we need to understand is unless we do what we need to do to clamp down on this and to make sure that those individuals are identified, that they're investigated, if it's warranted, they're indicted, and they're punished to the fullest extent of the law, we're opening up all of our states and all of our communities in our states for strife and for harm to individuals and to families that is irreparable.
Yeah, and we got this. This drug is geared toward children. This is one of the things that gets me, the candy colored, the ways they get in here. And if I was China, I was wanting to destroy America. What better way? I mean, they just about did it with the pandemic.
Well, no doubt. And the way to do it is to start with the families and to start with the children, because once you get those children, then you know that you will get the families, because it will destroy the basic foundational cell of building blocks for the future in our nation, which is a strong family unit.
Absolutely. That's the one thing that bothers me is the security. That is a big security. That just be. We should have all hands on deck to make sure these people don't get inside here. And if the ones that come in, they're coming in for the right reasons. But we got some bad players that's coming in this country. And I just wish President Trump was out there continuing with this border wall and whatever. But with that said, we got elections is another thing, another topic, big topic. You've got a lot of it here in Alabama, but nationwide, that oppression, suppression. I was listening to about Georgia. I mean, gosh, how do you get millions and millions more voters, but you're still yelling suppression?
Ken, look, if you're talking about voter suppression, then you're talking about issues that are related to people not being able to vote legally because they meet the criteria, but there are obstacles that are in the way where they cannot exercise their right to vote. Now, if you are concerned because people are following established state and federal laws, then you need to change the established state and federal laws if you don't agree with those. But the biggest problem that we have today is that we have election officials at the local, at the state, and federal level that are not following established state and federal laws. That's what happened in 2020. That's what is happening today. And until we stop that, we're going to continue to see a deterioration of the basic foundational principles of a successful administration of the election process. And we are honored that Alabama is recognized nationally as the gold standard for election administration in the United States of America.
They yell Jim Crow, Jim Crow. I don't see this. I mean, I vote, so I know what I see. And I know what it takes to vote. And I have voted absentee ballot. I have voted, I go in as a handicapped person to vote. I have no problem. I don't understand. I think you told me one time you went to a person's house on the front porch and registered them to vote.
Ken, we've done that on more than 35 occasions, and I think it's important to know that when we've done that, we've done it to make it easier for people to participate. That's why our mantra has been for the last 7 years, 9 months, and 18 days that we want to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat in Alabama.
There's people out there that would think that the Secretary of State's goal is to nobody vote. I mean, they would think that you had got it. You're wanting to look good to the people of Alabama. You just keep them voting, and that is so ridiculous. But we've run out of time in this part here, so let's go to a break. Come back, and we'll talk more with John Merrill. And welcome back to Brainstorming America. Forgot there for a minute. Brainstorming America. That's a new show we're doing here. And my guest today, co-host, is the Alabama Secretary of State, John Merrill. And John, when we went to break, we was talking about the election. Let's go to another subject now, and one that people in Potomac, Alabama, do not think about China, the effect that they're having on us as we speak. And I can name a bunch, from a technology part, whatever you name it. Our farms. Our military, they have got a hold in everything we're doing. And the fentanyl I talked about, that starts there. What's your thoughts on
We
China?
can look. Yeah, I think it's important to make sure that we are concentrating on our relationship with China in a positive way. The Chinese are the largest nation in the world, but they also are the most aggressive nation in the world when it comes to trying to put themselves in a position to overtake America and to overtake every other country in the world, because world domination is what they want. But it does not mean that America needs to put its head in the sand and not pay attention to what they're doing, or to prohibit people from going to China or even welcoming people from China. But it is important that we have security and transparency as our highest mark. I've been to China twice in the last 7 years. I went in 2015. I went again in 2019. The difference that I saw between 2015 and 2019 was remarkable. The growth, the experience. When I went back in 2019, they only allow certain cars to be on the road every other day. If your tag is not a certain number, then you would not be able to drive your car on that day, and if you do drive it, you get a citation. The other thing that we have seen repeatedly is stealing intellectual property from the United States. Now, I think that President Trump did a tremendous job of ensuring that whenever the Chinese are wanting to do business, certain requirements have to be met. If they're not being met, they don't need to be able to do business with our people, because they will charge tariffs, they will charge fines and fees in order for you to be able to do business, and America has not been as aggressive in that as the past. Now, many people, I'm not going to say we all, but many people remember that Richard Nixon actually broke down the wall for us to start having an interaction with the Chinese again. But we have not had a president as strong as Richard Nixon on international trade with China, with the possible exception of George Herbert Walker Bush, since Donald Trump. We cannot let the Chinese run over us. We cannot allow them to get a competitive advantage on us, or it will be to our national detriment.
I was going to call it because I know that Donald Trump, in my lifetime of watching, he has done more in the past couple of decades to wrangle in China and make them come to the table with something, rather than just taking it. You're taking everything out of America. Okay, you're going to have to put something back.
Absolutely. But the reason I said what I did about the change is that we cannot simply turn a blind eye to the largest market in the world, because they have more people than any other nation in the world. And so we have to be open to understanding what our relationship with them should be from a protective environment, but not to just get run over just because we think they're a big bad brother. We've got to make sure we're protecting ourselves, and we're protecting our intellectual property, and we're protecting our goods and services that we can exchange and interact with them.
When that reminds me, when Trump was the first in office, he had the head of China, Xi, was there for dinner. And while they were having dinner, in between the main meal and the dessert, Trump had to take a call. And while he took that call, he ordered a missile thing in on Syria, ISIS. And then he goes back to the table, and I'm just thinking about this conversation. Excuse me, Mr. King, I had to go order an attack on a country while you was waiting on the dessert. I would have to think, as a foreign leader, I need to watch this guy. I need to watch that guy. And when you have somebody like Trump that was looking at from a business perspective, I don't want this country ever elect another president that don't have a business perspective, because they can't negotiate with the big boys unless they have some perspective. And Trump was putting tariffs on everything. If you're going to send your product, you're going to overload. You're going to overload us, you're going to pay. He made them pay. And so that's what I say we're going to have to do in order to, before we get out of time.
Yes, sir.
Unborn live.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I am so excited about the Dobbs decision and what we were able to experience this summer when the Supreme Court actually ruled overturning Roe v. Wade and establishing that some of state laws that have recently been passed can be in place to help preserve the unborn and to protect the unborn. For many, many years, 50 years, our country has been at odds with ourselves in identifying this particular issue. But we need to make sure that when those babies are born, that they are put in protective environments. So we need to be advocating for adoption through Lifeline and other services around our nation. It has to be a key principle for success in order for our nation to continue to flourish and be all it can possibly be.
I'm watching on a daily basis. My ex-wife's niece is in Korea today, and with her husband, who is a pilot. They have already adopted one little Korean boy. I love that little Samuel. They're down there to get Rosie now, the little girl. They are a beautiful couple, and they're raising these children. And I'm thinking, they're going over there and getting these, and we got so many here going through the same thing.
Sure.
Not saying they shouldn't do that.
Yes, sir.
But I'm saying we should go with if you don't feel like you can raise the baby, let's go with this. Get the adoption up there. Put something on the table to say, here, take this.
Absolutely.
This is a better option.
That's right.
Would you agree?
No doubt. And we need to promote that through independent adoption services. We need to promote that through the Department of Human Resources in the state of Alabama. And we need to make sure that families are identified that want to welcome new loved ones to their home to make their family complete.
Well, we got a lot of things that we could talk about, but with every show I ever been on, they run the clock. I think they kick that clock in and doing it like this.
Yes, sir.
Because it hadn't been 8 minutes since we last went that last. Maybe get us a lawyer and deal with the people in the control booth back there. But this is our first show on this, and
yes,
I hope you'll do many more. And I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, my friend.
And it's good to have you doing all the things you do for Alabama and America.
Thank you.
You've been on a national stage, and you've made a difference nationally, and I appreciate that. Glad to know you. We got to go. We'll see you next time on Brainstorming America.